The spotlight was blinding, the kind that made the rest of the world fade away into nothing but silence and heartbeat. 12-year-old Ethan Cole stood at the center of the massive stage, a trembling microphone between his fingers, and a sea of expectant faces stretching out before him. The cameras zoomed in, capturing every flicker of fear, every shimmer of uncertainty in his blue eyes. It wasn't just stage fright that made his knees shake, it was something deeper, heavier. Tonight, Ethan wasn't just singing to win a talent show. He was singing for someone who could no longer hear him, at least, not from this world. Ethan had never imagined himself standing under those dazzling lights. Just a year earlier, his world was small, just his father, Daniel Cole, a hard-working mechanic who smelled of oil and sunshine, and their tiny house in a quiet Ohio town. They didn't have much, but what they had was love, and music. Daniel used to sing old country songs while fixing cars, his rough, calloused hands tapping the rhythm on the steel frame, while Ethan watched, wide-eyed and smiling. Music, kiddo, his father would say, is how the soul speaks when words give up. It became their secret language, melodies instead of goodbyes, harmonies instead of hugs. Then, one stormy night, the melody stopped. Daniel was driving home late after a long shift at the shop. The rain was relentless, the road slick. A drunk driver ran a red light, and in an instant, Ethan's world shattered. He remembered the sound of the phone ringing, the police officer's voice, and his mother's silent scream as the receiver fell from her hand. The house felt colder after that. The silence, unbearable. Ethan stopped singing. The guitar his father had gifted him on his 10th birthday sat untouched in the corner, collecting dust and memories. But grief, as heavy as it is, has a strange way of transforming into strength. A few months later, when his school announced a charity concert to raise funds for families affected by drunk driving, Ethan's name appeared on the sign-up list, though he hadn't written it. His best friend, Lily, had done it for him. "You always said music heals," she whispered when he confronted her. "Maybe it's time to let it heal you too." At first, he wanted to back out. The idea of standing before hundreds, singing the song his dad loved most, felt impossible. But then he found something tucked inside the guitar case, a folded note, yellowed with time. In his father's handwriting were the words, "If you ever lose me, don't stop singing. That's how I'll always find you." Ethan cried that night, but when the tears dried, something inside him awoke, a spark of courage, fragile but alive. He picked up the guitar again, his fingers rusty but determined, and began to play. The strings were stiff, the chords uneven, but slowly, the sound filled the empty house. It was as if his father's voice joined him again, whispering from the spaces between the notes. The night of the charity concert arrived. The gymnasium was packed, students, parents, teachers, all waiting for the performances to begin. Ethan wore his father's old denim jacket, sleeves rolled up, too big for his thin frame. When his name was announced, the crowd went quiet. He stepped up to the microphone, his small hands gripping the guitar. "This song," he said softly, "is for my dad. He's listening from heaven." The first strum echoed through the hall like a heartbeat. Then his voice, fragile, trembling, but pure, rose into the air. He sang, humble and kind, the song his father used to hum in the garage. His voice carried pain, love, and longing all at once. Halfway through the song, something miraculous happened, the audience started to stand. One by one, people wiped their eyes. Even the teachers who barely knew him felt the ache of his loss and the beauty of his courage. When he finished, the silence was profound. Then came the applause, thunderous, endless. But Ethan didn't smile. He just looked up at the ceiling, whispered, "That was for you, Dad," and walked off the stage with tears in his eyes. A local journalist filmed the performance and uploaded it to social media. By morning, it had over 2 million views. Within days, the video had circled the globe. People from every continent commented, parents who had lost children, children who had lost parents, soldiers overseas, doctors in hospitals, all saying the same thing. "This boy reminded me to love harder, to live kinder." Television networks called, interviews flooded in, and soon Ethan was invited to perform on a national talent show. His mother hesitated, he was still grieving, but Ethan said something that silenced her doubts. "Mom, if I can make people feel what Dad made me feel, maybe I can help them too." She nodded through her tears. Then sing, baby. Sing for both of us. Dash dash dash. And so, here he was, months later, standing on the grandest stage of all. The judges, famous musicians and stars, watched curiously as he stepped forward. The host whispered, "Are you ready, Ethan?" He nodded, his heart pounding. As the first notes began, the audience leaned in. He sang a song he wrote himself, called, "Heaven Has My Hero." His voice was no longer trembling. It was full, rich, mature beyond his years. Every lyric told a story of loss, love, and eternal connection. "If heaven has my hero," he sang, "then I'll keep singing loud, until he hears me proud." Halfway through, Ethan glanced up. The stage lights blurred with tears, but he swore he could see a shadow, his father's outline, smiling from somewhere above the crowd. The moment filled him with warmth, courage, and peace. When the final note rang out, the world seemed to stop. Then, all at once, the judges stood. One by one, they pressed the golden buzzer. Golden confetti rained down as Ethan fell to his knees, crying not from shock but from relief. "Dad, I did it," he whispered. The judges had tears in their eyes. One of them, an old rock legend, said through the microphone, "Son, that wasn't just a performance. That was a prayer, and the whole world heard it." Dash dash dash. In the weeks that followed, Ethan's life changed forever. He toured across the country, performing for charities supporting families affected by drunk driving. Each concert raised money, but more importantly, hope. People would approach him afterward with stories about brothers lost, daughters gone too soon, and they'd say, "Your song gave me strength." Ethan never felt like a star, he felt like a messenger. One night, after a concert in New York, a man approached him backstage. He was middle-aged, with trembling hands and sorrow in his eyes. "Ethan," he said, voice breaking, "I'm the man who caused the accident that took your father." The words hit like thunder. For a moment, Ethan couldn't breathe. The man continued, "I've spent every day since hating myself. I wanted to come here, to apologize." The room went silent. The guards stepped forward, but Ethan raised his hand. He looked into the man's eyes and saw not a monster, but a broken soul. Slowly, he said, "My dad always told me music was about forgiveness. He'd want me to forgive you." He reached out, took the man's shaking hand, and whispered, "Make your life mean something good now." That's how we both honor him. The man sobbed uncontrollably. That moment became the most shared video of Ethan's life, more than his performances, more than the golden buzzer. The world saw what true forgiveness looked like. Dash dash dash. Years passed. Ethan grew taller, older, but his message stayed the same. He founded a nonprofit called Heaven Hears, supporting kids who lost parents. He played concerts not for fame, but for healing. At every show, before he sang his father's song, he'd say, "If you're missing someone tonight, sing with me." They're listening. One Christmas Eve, years later, he stood on that same Ohio stage where it had all begun, the charity concert where he first found his voice again. The hall was packed, filled with faces young and old, some carrying candles, others tears. Ethan strummed his guitar, smiled gently, and said, "Dad, this one's still for you." When he sang, it was no longer just for his father, it was for every broken heart that needed mending. His voice carried across the room, through the screens, through the hearts of millions. Somewhere, perhaps in heaven, his father smiled, proud of the boy who turned grief into grace. And as the final note faded, a hush fell over the audience. Then came applause, soft at first, then rising like a wave. But what lingered wasn't just sound, it was hope. Because sometimes, one song is enough to remind the world that love never dies. It simply changes its tune.